Download this code from codegive.com, link in the description below. OK, let's dive deep into the const keyword in JavaScript. This tutorial will cover everything from the basics to more nuanced usage and best practices. Understanding const in JavaScript. In JavaScript, const is a keyword used to declare a variable. It's important to understand what const actually means and doesn't mean, as it's a common source of confusion, especially for programmers coming from other languages. What const means, and doesn't mean immutability versus read-only. Const does not mean the variable's value is immutable, unchangeable, after it's assigned. This is a crucial point. Const means that the variable's binding is immutable. A binding is essentially the association between the variable name and a specific memory location. Const prevents you from reassigning a new value, which is effectively assigning a new memory location to that variable. In simpler terms, const means you can't change what the variable refers to, but you might be able to change the thing the variable refers to. This is really important for objects and arrays. Basic usage and syntax. The syntax for declaring a const variable is straightforward. Key rules and behaviors. 1. Initialization required. You must assign a value to a const variable when you declare it. Failing to do so will result in a syntax error. 2. Reassignment prohibited. Once a const variable is assigned a value, you cannot reassign it to a different value. This will result in a type error. 3. Scope. Const variables respect block scope, just like let variables. This means they are only accessible within the block, the code enclosed in curly braces, where they are defined. 4. Hoisting. Const variables are hoisted, but unlike var, they are not initialized with undefined. Accessing a const variable before its declaration in the code results in a reference error. This is often described as being in the temporal dead zone, TDZ. Implications for different data types. The key distinction arises when dealing with primitive data types, numbers, strings, booleans, null, undefined, symbols, and big int, versus objects and arrays. Primitive data types. When const is used with primitive data types, the value itself cannot be changed. Objects and arrays. This is where the not immutable aspect comes into play. While you can't reassign the object or array, i.e., make the variable point to a completely different object or array, you can modify its properties or elements. Achieving immutability, or something closer to it. If you truly need immutable objects or arrays, const alone is insufficient. Here are some techniques you can use to achieve immutability, or at least simulate it for your own code. 1. Object.freeze. This method freezes an object, preventing new properties from being added, existing properties from being removed, and existing property values from being changed. It returns the same object that was passed in, but now it is immutable. Note that object.freeze only makes the top level of the object immutable. If the object has nested objects, those nested objects are still mutable unless you also freeze them recursively. To fully freeze a nested object, you'd need a recursive function. 2. Immutability libraries. Libraries like immutable.js provide data structures that are inherently immutable. When you modify an immutable data structure, it returns a new data structure with the changes, leaving the original data structure untouched. This is a much more robust approach, especially for complex applications. 3. Spread operator and object.assign. These techniques are useful for creating shallow copies of objects or arrays, which can help prevent unintended mutations of the original data. While not strictly immutable, they make it easier to work with data in a more predictable way. Important asterisk spread operator and object.assign, only create shallow copies. If your object has nested objects or arrays, modifying those nested structures in the copy will still affect the original. When to use const. Asterisk variables that should not be reassigned. Asterisk use const whenever you have a variable whose value you intend to remain constant throughout the execution of your program. This helps prevent accidental reassignment and makes your code more predictable. Examples include configuration settings, API endpoints, math constants, like pi, and references to DOM elements that you don't intend to change. Asterisk loop counters, in some cases you can use const for loop counters in for, of and for, in loops. Since the loop counter is effectively reassigned with each iteration, const will work fine because a new binding is created each time. However, const cannot be used with regular for loops, where the counter is explicitly incremented or decremented. Asterisk as a default. Asterisk many developers recommend using const as the default variable declaration, and only use let when you know you need to reassign the variable. This forces you to be more deliberate about when variables need to be mutable, leading to more maintainable code. Benefits of using const. Asterisk code readability. Asterisk const tells other developers, and your future self, that you don't intend for the variable to be reassigned. This makes the code easier to understand. Asterisk error prevention. Asterisk the compiler will catch accidental reassignment errors, saving you time and effort in debugging. Asterisk optimization. Asterisk in some cases, JavaScript engines can optimize code that uses const more effectively because they know the value will not change. However, the performance benefits are usually minimal. Asterisk more predictable code. Asterisk knowing that a variable's binding will not change makes your code more predictable and easier to reason about. Best practices. Asterisk use const by default. Asterisk as mentioned earlier, a good practice is to use const unless you have a specific reason to use let. Asterisk meaningful names. Asterisk give const variables descriptive names that clearly indicate their purpose. All uppercase names are often used for constants that are intended to be truly immutable or globally accessible, but this is just a convention. Asterisk understand immutability limitations. Asterisk be aware that const does not guarantee true immutability for objects and arrays. If you need immutability, use object.freeze, immutable libraries, or techniques like the spread operator to create copies. Asterisk consider your team's coding style. Asterisk if your team already uses a particular style, such as always using let unless you are certain you want a constant, it is important to follow that pattern. Examples and use cases. 1. Configuration settings. Asterisk. 2. DOM element references. Asterisk. 3. Mathematical constants. Asterisk. 4. Looping with for, of and for, in asterisk. 5. Creating a constant object that holds other constants. Asterisk. In summary, const is a valuable tool in JavaScript for creating more readable, maintainable, and less error-prone code. It signals that a variable's binding should not be reassigned, which helps prevent accidental modifications and makes your code more predictable. However, it's crucial to remember that const does not guarantee immutability for objects and arrays, and you may need to use additional techniques or libraries to achieve true immutability. By understanding these nuances, you can effectively use const to write better JavaScript code.